Commander Isabella Torres stood at the viewport of the Stellar Research Station Helios, watching Jupiter's swirling storms paint ribbons of amber and cream across the gas giant's surface. Her reflection stared back at her, sharp features, olive skin, and eyes that had seen too much in their 38 years. The same eyes that now studied the quantum data chip in her hand, its surface gleaming with the faint blue phosphorescence characteristic of quantum storage devices. Admiral James Harrison had been dead for 3 weeks when the package arrived. The official report cited a reactor malfunction on his personal research vessel, but Isabella knew better. Harrison had been her mentor, her friend, and in the 15 years she'd known him, he'd never made a mistake with reactor protocols. Commander Torres, the station's AI chirped through her neural implant. "You have an incoming priority message from Director Rhodes." Isabella pocketed the chip. "Not now, Arya. Lock my quarters and engage privacy protocols." She crossed to her desk, brushing aside holographic reports that hung in the air like digital fireflies. The quantum reader hummed to life as she inserted the chip, its scanning beam casting her office in ethereal light. Harrison's face materialized above the device, his usual confident expression replaced by something she'd never seen before, fear. "Isabella, if you're watching this, then they've finally caught up with me." His holographic form flickered. "What I discovered on Europa, it changes everything we thought we knew about the universe. About our place in it." She leaned forward, fingers gripping the edge of her desk. Harrison had vanished on Europa 6 months ago, his research facility going dark without warning. The space agency had written it off as another casualty of the moon's harsh conditions. The quantum signatures we detected weren't natural phenomena. Harrison's image glanced over his shoulder. "They're messages, Isabella. From them. The ones who came before. And they're trying to warn us." Static crackled through the recording. Isabella's heart raced. First contact had been humanity's dream for centuries. If Harrison had found evidence. "The facility's coordinates are encoded in this transmission. Everything is still there, my research, the quantum array, the truth." His voice grew urgent. "But be careful. They're watching. The agency, the consortium, all of them. They can't be allowed to find it first. The consequences would be." The hologram dissolved into chaos. Through the interference, Isabella caught fragments, quantum gate, temporal displacement, and finally, most disturbingly, they're already here. The recording ended, leaving Isabella alone with the implications of what she'd heard. She accessed the station's secure database, pulling up everything she could find on Harrison's Europa facility. Most files were redacted, but one detail caught her eye: a supply manifest listing equipment for quantum entanglement experiments on a scale she'd never seen before. "Arya," she subvocalized through her implant. "Who else has accessed these files in the last 3 weeks?" 3 separate queries from Consortium Intelligence Division, the AI responded. And one from Director Rhodes's office 17 minutes ago. Isabella's blood ran cold. Rhodes had always been too interested in Harrison's work. Now she knew why. The quantum chip grew warm in the reader, and new data streamed across her neural display: coordinates, security codes, and schematics for the Europa facility. But mixed with the technical data were fragments of equations she didn't recognize, mathematical concepts that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of physics. A soft chime indicated someone attempting to override her privacy protocols. Time was running out. Isabella made her decision. She couldn't trust the agency, not with this. She needed a team, people she could trust, specialists who wouldn't ask too many questions. And she needed them fast. "Arya, send a message to Dr. Kira Patel in quantum physics. Tell her to meet me at the Dimos bar in 2 hours. Then contact Marcus Wong, he should be somewhere in the Saturn rings. Tell him it's about Harrison." She encrypted Harrison's data and transferred it to her secure implant storage. The chip she dropped into a molecular disassembler, watching as it dissolved into its component atoms. Privacy override in progress, Arya warned. Director Rhodes's authorization. Isabella straightened her uniform. Initiate data purge protocol 7. Full wipe of the last hour's activity. She took one last look at Jupiter through the viewport. Somewhere on Europa, Harrison had found something that got him killed. Something that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. Sorry, sir, she whispered to Harrison's memory. Looks like I'll be disobeying orders one last time. The door chimed. Isabella composed her features into a mask of professional indifference. Whatever game Rhodes was playing, she wouldn't find anything here. But in less than 48 hours, Isabella would be on her way to Europa, ready to uncover the truth her mentor had died protecting. And maybe, just maybe, discover why an ancient alien civilization had chosen this moment to break their cosmic silence. The Dimos bar pulsed with the low hum of conversation and the faint scent of synthesized whiskey. Dr. Kira Patel sat in a corner booth, her dark fingers drumming against a glass of untouched Martian wine. Marcus Wong sprawled across from her, his weathered face bearing the distinctive scarring of long-term exposure to Saturn's ring radiation. A suicide mission, Marcus declared, running a hand through his silver-streaked hair. That's what you're proposing, Commander. Isabella leaned forward, keeping her voice low. Harrison found something out there. Something worth dying for. Something worth killing for, you mean, Kira corrected. The quantum physicist's reputation for brilliance was matched only by her cynicism. The agency doesn't send kill teams after failed experiments. The holographic privacy field around their booth rippled, admitting a fourth figure. Lieutenant Raj Sharma materialized from the crowd like a ghost, his military-grade stealth implants powering down. Security feeds are looped. We've got 10 minutes. Isabella nodded. Raj had been her security chief for 5 years, and his paranoia had saved their lives more than once. Harrison left us a map. Not just to his facility, but to something bigger. The quantum signatures he detected, they're artificial. Kira's eyes widened. Impossible. The energy requirements alone would be beyond our current technology, Isabella finished. Exactly. She transmitted the encrypted data to their neural links. The equations floated in their shared augmented space, complex mathematical structures that seemed to fold in on themselves impossibly. These patterns, Kira breathed. They're describing quantum states that shouldn't exist. If these readings are accurate. They are, Isabella assured her. Harrison verified them personally. Marcus whistled low. That's why they killed him. But why Europa? Why hide something this big on our cosmic doorstep? Because nobody would think to look there, Raj suggested. Hide something in plain sight. Isabella activated a detailed hologram of Europa's surface. The facility is here, buried under 3 kilometers of ice. Official records show it was abandoned after a containment breach, but Harrison's data tells a different story. They found something in the ice. Something that's been waiting. Waiting for what? Kira asked. For us to be ready. Isabella's hand passed through the hologram, scattering light. Harrison believed these quantum signatures were messages. Communication from an advanced civilization. And now you want us to break into a lockdown research facility, dodge agency security, and possibly make first contact with an alien intelligence? Marcus laughed. Count me in. Been getting bored hauling ice anyway. Kira's expression remained skeptical. The quantum harmonics alone would require. A specialist of your caliber, Isabella interrupted. Harrison name-dropped you specifically in his files. He trusted you. That seemed to decide it. Kira nodded slowly. When do we leave? My ship's docked on level 7, Marcus offered. The stellar wind. She's not pretty, but she's fast and her credentials are clean. 2 hours, Isabella decided. Pack light, bring only what you need. Once we're on Europa, we'll have 18 hours before the agency realizes I've gone offline. Raj's implants were already cycling through security protocols. I'll need access to the facility's original defense grids. If they've been modified since shutdown. A ripple in the privacy field cut him off. Isabella's neural implant flashed a proximity warning seconds before Director Rhodes's face appeared on every screen in the bar. Attention all personnel. Commander Isabella Torres is hereby relieved of duty pending investigation into suspected treason and data theft. Any personnel found aiding or abetting. So much for 18 hours, Marcus muttered. Isabella was already moving. Raj, kill the feeds. Kira, you still have access to the quantum labs? Yes, but... Good. We need to make a stop. Marcus, get your ship ready. And someone grab that bottle of Martian wine. Something tells me we're going to need it. They split up, merging into the panicked crowd as security alerts blared through the station. Isabella felt the weight of Harrison's final message pressing against her consciousness. Whatever waited for them on Europa, she had a feeling it would change more than just their understanding of the universe. What she didn't know, couldn't know, was that deep beneath Europa's ice, ancient machines were stirring to life, responding to signals that had waited millions of years to be heard. And in the quantum realm between spaces, something vast and patient had begun to turn its attention toward humanity's first stumbling steps into a much larger universe. The game Harrison had started was about to change forever. Isabella just hoped they'd live long enough to learn the rules. The stellar wind cut through Europa's thin atmosphere, ice crystals forming on its viewport as Marcus guided them toward the coordinates embedded in Harrison's data. Below them, the moon's surface stretched endlessly, a cracked wasteland of ice and hidden oceans. Defense grid is still active, Raj reported from his security station. But running on minimal power. Looks like automated protocols only. Kira hadn't looked up from her quantum analysis suite in hours. These readings are impossible. The energy signature is getting stronger, but it's twisted somehow. Like it exists in multiple states simultaneously. Isabella studied the approaching research facility through the ship's enhanced imaging system. From the surface, it appeared abandoned, just another failed outpost half buried in Europa's eternal ice. But the quantum readings told a different story. There, she pointed to a barely visible landing pad. Set us down behind that ridge. Should shield us from orbital scans. Marcus brought them in with practiced ease, the ship's landing struts crunching against the ice. Better suit up. Atmosphere's gone, and the temperature's dropping fast. Their environmental suits were top-of-the-line agency gear, borrowed without permission from Kira's lab. As they stepped onto Europa's surface, Isabella felt the ice vibrate beneath her boots. Not from their footsteps, this came from deeper, a rhythmic pulse that seemed to resonate with the quantum signals. Main entrance is sealed, Raj announced, scanning the facility. But I'm picking up an active maintenance shaft about 50 meters east. They moved carefully across the ice, their suits' magnetic grips compensating for the low gravity. The maintenance shaft turned out to be barely wide enough for them to descend single file. Isabella went first, her helmet lights illuminating decades of accumulated frost. Harrison's last transmission came from the Quantum Research Lab, she reminded them through the comm, Sublevel 3. Whatever he found, that's where we'll find answers. The shaft opened into a darkened corridor. Emergency lighting flickered to life as they approached, casting everything in a pale blue glow. The walls were covered in frost patterns that seemed almost deliberate, geometric shapes that repeated with mathematical precision. Those aren't natural, Kira breathed, scanning the patterns. They're quantum crystallization structures. The entire facility is acting like some kind of massive quantum computer. A distant boom echoed through the corridors. Metal groaned as ancient systems awakened. Movement ahead, Raj warned. Security drones. Old models, but still lethal. They ducked into a side room as 3 spherical drones glided past, their sensors sweeping the corridor. Isabella's heart pounded. The room they'd chosen appeared to be a research station, its walls lined with displays showing cascading data in formats she didn't recognize. "Look at this," Marcus called from a corner. He stood before a holographic projection of what appeared to be a DNA strand, but it twisted in ways that defied biology. What were they studying down here? Kira approached the display, her expression mixing awe and horror. They were trying to modify human genetics using quantum principles. Creating biological quantum computers. She turned to Isabella. "Your mentor wasn't just studying alien messages. He was trying to help us evolve." Another boom, closer this time. The facility was waking up around them, decades of dormant systems coming online. Through her boots, Isabella felt that deep pulse growing stronger. "We need to move," Raj insisted. "Those drones will double back soon." They made their way deeper into the facility, avoiding security patrols through Raj's guidance. The quantum signatures grew stronger with each level they descended. By the time they reached sub-level 3, Isabella's neural implant was overwhelmed with data. The quantum research lab's doors were sealed with security protocols far beyond anything they'd encountered so far. While Raj worked on bypassing them, Isabella noticed something odd about the wall beside the entrance. "There's writing here," she said, brushing away years of frost. The symbols weren't in any human language, but somehow, she understood them. The knowledge seemed to flow directly into her mind, carried on waves of quantum information. "Warning," she translated. "Breach in local causality detected. Temporal quarantine in effect." The doors slid open with a hiss of escaping air, revealing Harrison's private lab. In the center stood a massive quantum array, its crystalline structure pulsing with internal light. And suspended within it, trapped in a field of frozen time, was Admiral Harrison himself. His body hadn't aged a day since his disappearance. His hand was stretched toward a console, his face locked in an expression of desperate determination. And floating before him, assembled from pure light and impossible mathematics, was a key that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could process. "The quantum key," Kira whispered. "He actually built it." Before Isabella could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A new voice echoed through their comms, "Director Rhodes. Thank you for leading us here, Commander Torres. I must admit, I was beginning to think Harrison had taken his secrets to the grave. Now, please step away from the quantum array. There's something much bigger happening here than you realize." Security drones poured into the lab, surrounding them. Through the frozen time field, Harrison's eyes seemed to be trying to tell them something. Something about the key, about time itself, and about choices that would echo across universes. Isabella reached for her weapon, knowing they were trapped, but also knowing that whatever Harrison had discovered, whatever he had sacrificed himself to protect, it had to be worth any cost. The quantum pulse beneath their feet grew to a deafening rhythm, and in that moment, she understood that the real test was just beginning. Director Rhodes stepped into the quantum lab, flanked by agency commandos in matte black environmental suits. Her silver hair was perfectly styled despite the harsh conditions, her augmented eyes glowing with a predatory gleam. "Lower your weapons," she ordered. "This situation is far beyond your clearance level." Isabella kept her pistol trained on Rhodes. "Like Harrison's murder was beyond my clearance?" "Murder?" Rhodes laughed. "James Harrison isn't dead, Commander. At least, not in any conventional sense. He's trapped between moments, caught in a quantum state between what was and what could be. Just like the beings who built this facility millions of years ago. The quantum array hummed, its crystalline structure casting fractalized shadows across the ice-covered walls. Through the temporal field, Harrison's frozen form flickered like a badly tuned hologram. The messages, Kira realized, her hands dancing across a nearby console. They weren't from aliens in space. They were from aliens in time. Rhodes nodded approvingly. Very good, Dr. Patel. The civilization we called the Architects didn't travel through space. They traveled through quantum possibilities, seeding the universe with stations like this one. Waiting for species to evolve enough to find them. And what happened when species found them? Marcus asked, his hand inching toward the ship's remote control on his belt. They were tested. Rhodes gestured at Harrison's frozen form. Just as we're being tested now. The quantum key isn't just a tool, it's a judge. It determines whether a species is ready to join the greater community of quantum-aware civilizations. Raja's tactical display flashed warnings. More drones incoming. Full security response. Isabella's mind raced. Rhodes was telling the truth, she could feel it in the quantum data flooding her neural implant. But there was something else, something in the director's tone. You've already used it, haven't you? Isabella accused. The key. That's why you're here, not to stop us, but because it didn't work for you. Rhodes's composed facade cracked slightly. The key requires specific genetic markers. Quantum compatibility that most humans lack. Harrison had it. And according to his research, so do you, Commander. The facility shuddered. Deep beneath their feet, ancient machinery groaned to life. The quantum pulse that had been building since their arrival reached a fever pitch. Station integrity compromised, the facility's AI announced. Quantum containment failing. Temporal breach imminent. Enough talking, Rhodes snapped. Secure the commander. Kill the others. Everything happened at once. Raj threw down electromagnetic scramblers, disabling the nearest drones. Marcus activated the Stellar Wind's remote systems, causing the ship to fire its engines, the vibrations shaking the entire facility. Kira's fingers flew across the quantum controls, trying to stabilize the temporal field. Isabella dove toward the quantum array, toward Harrison's frozen form and the impossible key that floated before him. Rhodes's commandos opened fire, their energy weapons carving chunks from the ice walls. Time seemed to slow as Isabella's hand touched the key. Reality fractured around her, showing her glimpses of other possibilities, other timelines. She saw Harrison's discovery, saw the moment he realized what humanity was truly facing. Saw why he had chosen her to follow his path. The architects hadn't seeded the universe with tests. They had seeded it with warnings. Because something was coming. Something that existed outside of quantum probability, outside of time itself. And humanity's only hope lay in learning to step sideways through reality before it arrived. The key dissolved into her neural implant, its quantum information integrating with her consciousness. Harrison's temporal field collapsed, and he fell forward, gasping. Run, he managed to croak. They're already. The facility's walls began to ripple like liquid mercury. Space itself seemed to bend and twist. Through gaps in reality, Isabella caught glimpses of impossible geometries and eyes that had never evolved in any natural universe. Full temporal breach. Kira shouted. The whole facility is phasing out of normal spacetime. Rhodes's commandos began to retreat, their training useless against the laws of physics unraveling around them. The director herself stood her ground, her augmented eyes fixed on Isabella. You don't understand what you've done, Rhodes said softly. The key wasn't meant to save us. It was meant to hide us. Before Isabella could respond, reality tore open. The quantum array exploded in a cascade of crystalline shards, each one containing reflections of possible futures. As temporal energy flooded the chamber, Isabella grabbed Harrison's arm and activated her neural link. "Everyone to the ship. Now!" They ran through corridors that stretched and compressed impossibly, pursued by things that existed between seconds. The key's knowledge burned in Isabella's mind, showing her paths through probability that shouldn't exist. Marcus reached the stellar wind first, his pilot's neural link already powering up the engines. They piled in as reality continued to dissolve around them. Through the viewport, Isabella watched Europa's surface ripple like disturbed water. "We can't just leave," Kira protested. "The temporal breach will be contained," Harrison finished, his voice rough from disuse. "That's what the facility was designed to do. To seal itself off in its own bubble of spacetime if the barriers were ever breached." As if to confirm his words, the research facility began to fold in on itself, taking Rhodes and her forces with it. In moments, there was nothing left but smooth ice and the quantum echoes of what had happened. Isabella helped Harrison to a seat as Marcus piloted them away from Europa at maximum thrust. The Admiral looked at her with eyes that had seen epochs pass in what felt to him like moments. "They'll be coming now," he said quietly. "The ones that exist between spaces. The ones the architects feared. And thanks to the key, you're the only one who can see them coming." The key's knowledge pulsed in Isabella's neural implant, showing her glimpses of a war fought across quantum possibilities. Of battles that would be won or lost before they ever began. And somewhere, in the spaces between moments, ancient eyes opened and turned their attention toward humanity's first stumbling steps into a much larger, and more dangerous, universe. The stellar wind drifted in the shadow of Saturn's rings, its systems powered down to minimal levels. In the ship's cramped medical bay, Harrison lay recovering while Kira attempted to make sense of the quantum data flooding their sensors. "They're coming through the probability gaps," Harrison explained, his voice stronger after 3 days of rest. "The spaces between choices, between moments. The architects called them the void dancers." Isabella touched the neural implant at the base of her skull, feeling the quantum key's knowledge pulse in response. "I can see them. Like shadows moving through possibilities." "The key was never meant to be a weapon," Harrison continued. "It's a beacon. A way to coordinate resistance across multiple timelines simultaneously." Marcus entered the medical bay, his face grim. Agency ships spotted in the outer rings. 3 cruisers, heavy armament. Rhodes survived. "Of course she did," Raj muttered from his security station. "Probably jumped to a timeline where the facility didn't collapse." Isabella closed her eyes, letting the key's quantum awareness flow through her consciousness. She could see them all now, countless parallel realities layered like pages in an infinite book. In some, they were already dead. In others, they hadn't yet begun. The true battlefield wasn't space, it was probability itself. The architects didn't leave, she realized. They didn't go extinct. They spread themselves across every possible timeline, creating a network of resistance against the void dancers. And now they want us to join them. A sudden alert blared through the ship. Kira's quantum sensors were screaming warnings. "Multiple temporal breaches," she shouted. "They're not just coming from one direction, they're coming from every possible future simultaneously." Through the viewport, reality began to crack. The void dancers emerged like oil spreading across water, beings of pure quantum uncertainty, their forms shifting between infinite possibilities. The agency cruisers opened fire, their weapons useless against entities that existed in all states at once. "The rings," Harrison said suddenly. "Saturn's rings, they're not just ice and rock. They're quantum computers, built by the architects. That's why I led Rhodes here." Isabella understood. The key showed her the truth, laid out in quantum mathematics older than Earth itself. Saturn's rings were part of a vast calculation, running for millions of years, computing the one probability path that led to survival. Everyone, hold on. She interfaced directly with the ship's systems, letting the key's knowledge guide her actions. Marcus, take us into the rings. Kira, route all power to the quantum sensors. Raj, trust me. The stellar wind dove into Saturn's rings, ice particles scattering against their shields. The void dancers followed, their presence warping space itself. Agency cruisers fired frantically, their shots passing through enemies that existed in multiple states of being. Isabella felt the key connecting with the quantum computers hidden within the rings. Ancient systems awakened, recognizing the patterns encoded in her neural implant. The rings began to glow with impossible colors as millions of years of calculations reached their conclusion. It was never about fighting them, she whispered. It was about proving we could see them. Proving we could comprehend their existence without going mad. That's the test, not whether we're strong enough to win, but whether we're stable enough to lose without losing ourselves. The key's energy surged through her, through the ship, through the rings themselves. In that moment, Isabella existed across all probabilities, saw all possible outcomes. And she made her choice. Reality shuddered as she activated the ring system's true purpose. Not a weapon, but a lens, focusing all possible timelines into a single, stable path. The void dancers recoiled as their quantum uncertainty was forced into a single state of being. Now we can see you, Isabella declared across all frequencies, all probabilities. Now we can talk. The void dancers paused. For the first time in human history, entities that existed between moments were forced to interact with linear time. The agency cruisers held their fire, their sensors overwhelmed by what they were witnessing. Through the quantum network hidden in Saturn's rings, other signals began to appear. The architects, reaching out across time and space, across infinite probabilities, to witness humanity's first true step into the quantum universe. Harrison laughed weakly from his medical bed. All this time, we thought it was about power. About weapons and control. But it was just about conversation. Understanding. The void dancers, now locked in a single probability stream, began to communicate. Their thoughts flowed through the key, through Isabella's neural implant, telling a story of a universe far stranger and more wonderful than humanity had imagined. They weren't invaders. They were refugees, fleeing the heat-death of other probability streams, seeking stable timelines where they could continue to exist. The architects hadn't built weapons, they had built bridges, waiting for species evolved enough to help maintain the quantum stability of reality itself. As the truth unfurled across her consciousness, Isabella felt the weight of countless futures settling into a new pattern. Humanity's role in the universe suddenly became clear, not conquerors, not victims, but mediators. Beings capable of understanding both linear time and quantum uncertainty, bridges between the physical and the probable. Send word to Earth, she told her crew, her family. Tell them everything's about to change. And that's exactly as it should be. The stellar wind hung in Saturn's glowing rings, suspended between moments, as humanity took its first steps into a universe far larger, far stranger, and far more hopeful than anyone had imagined. The war that never was became the conversation that always had to be, across all possible futures, in all possible times. And in every one of those futures, Isabella Torres smiled, knowing that sometimes the hardest part of understanding the universe isn't fighting it, it's learning to listen to its strangest songs.